Hi, everyone. My name is Bryant Chase. I'm CareerArc's Director of Social Media and a host of our new series, Help Wanted. So, Mr. Rogers once said something, and it really stuck with me. He said, when I was a boy and I would see scary things in the news, my mother would say to me, look for the helpers. You will always find people who are helping. Well, the recruiting industry needs help. Whether they need help finding candidates or need help surviving this crazy industry, they honestly just need it now more than ever. And in this series, our goal is to introduce you to some really special, cool helpers. We're going to chat about how their personal lives impact their professional lives and how that all circles back to ultimately benefit the recruiting, talent acquisition, and employer brand specialists of the world. So our inaugural episode is actually streaming from the beautiful Kempton Shorebreak Hotel in Huntington Beach for CareerArc's All-Staff Summit that starts today. And we're really excited to be meeting everyone in person for the first time. We haven't seen everyone in person before, due to, of course, the world as we know it being absolutely bizarre these past few years. But we love hearing from where you all are watching from. So please do us a favor and comment below and let us know where you're watching from. It's one of my favorite parts of checking over the notes after this. So just as a reminder too, we are streaming the show live. We want it to be authentic, transparent, unpolished, and as real as can be because we want you to know the real people. We won't edit or trim things down, but any feedback you can provide in the comments, we genuinely really appreciate. We want this to be fun and conversational while providing valuable feedback. But the number one thing is that you guys have as much fun listening as we have talking. So that's something that's also really, really crucial. We're going to have a bunch of different guests, but our guest today is someone who has been so important to me, Alyssa Gioscia. She is our Director of Enterprise Development. But today, we're going to be talking about her role as an executive coach and as my coach, even. So here she is, Alyssa. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, everyone, and welcome.
Yeah. So you're our inaugural guest, and we're super appreciative of that. So take a moment and tell everybody about yourself.
Absolutely. Thanks, Bryant. So, my name is Alyssa Gioscia. I am the Director of Enterprise Development at CareerArc. I am also an executive coach. I have been with CareerArc for 6 years, and I've had different roles at the organization. But now, in my current role, I'm very excited because I get to coach for the organization. So, as an executive coach, I get to bring that into everyone who works at CareerArc, which is really exciting. And I am located in Austin, Texas, normally, but currently like Bryant in the Shorebreak Hotel in Huntington Beach. So we're getting to enjoy a little beautiful sun and sand while we're here.
Yeah. And it's funny, Alyssa's actually right next door to me. and so, and just so you all know too, we are good friends on top of all this, which is really, really fantastic. So, if you notice our candor with one another, that's a lot to do with it, and we want to maintain that. So even if you guys are just able, I know a lot of people are working right now, so even if you all are just listening in, feel free to just put us on the background, and hopefully you'll listen and enjoy everything you hear. But Alyssa, you did not start out as an executive coach. So you told me a story about how you started out, and I thought it was really fascinating, and I feel like it kind of sets the groundwork for this presentation today. So tell everybody how this hell happened.
Absolutely. I think it's a good story. So as I mentioned, I've been at CareerArc for a little over 6 years now. And I started at CareerArc as a client success manager. And I really enjoyed it because I got to work with clients in a variety of different industries. And one day I was talking to a friend who's also a colleague and fellow coach. And he asked me if I had had a good day. And I said, yes. And he said, well, is this your dream job? And I had to stop and think about it because I thought, well, I really like it, but I don't know if I would classify it as my dream job. And so we
Yeah.
started talking, and I realized, well, I would like to be able to answer that question, what is my dream job? So I started working with him as a coach. And the more I saw the way coaching was impacting my own life and
Mm.
the way I was interacting with colleagues, the way I was interacting with clients, and what he was doing as a coach, I realized, gosh, I really love this. And I looked back also at the types of jobs that I have had, which a lot of them are things like being a client success manager, where you're coaching and working on strategy and talking with people and building relationships. And I thought, well, that's really what I want to be doing. And so
Yeah.
I became a certified coach on my end. And then after conversations with our CEO within the organization, was able to now bring that into CareerArc, which is just thrilling for me because, as Bryant said, we have friendships here. So I have colleagues who I love working with, great friendships, and now being able to offer coaching to them is actually very exciting.
It's thrilling for everybody too, because I utilize the coaching that we have with Alyssa, and I love it. And there are plenty of times where I am like, Alyssa, do you have time for like a 5-minute coaching pep talk? Because I'm going through something and it's stressing me out. And you are always so helpful, which makes sense because literally as soon as I started, you and I clicked right from the get-go. And it just makes so much sense. You're made to do this type of work. And I'm so appreciative that our CEO recognizes the value of reallocating this new skill set that you've developed for yourself to the rest of the team, because it makes me feel like I'm doing a better job for everybody too. So it's really special. But that's one of the things that has been so important that I mentioned a minute ago, is that idea that I come up with mental blocks, and I think a lot of people come up with mental blocks, especially in the recruiting industry. It doesn't even necessarily have to be mental from like, I can't think of something. It could be, I can't think about anything else because this other thing is absolutely, taking control of my mind at the moment. And you can really help. You've really been able to help me remove mental blocks and reallocate them to other places. How do you go about doing that? What's the kind of trick that you use there to help us see things from beyond our own kind of vision space?
Well, less than a trick, but I would say, my coaching style is very inquisitive. So it's inquiry based. I like to ask a lot of questions because we do bring our own unique perspectives and personalities to a space. But sometimes because of that, we may see something in a way that's colored by our experiences. And so it's my job as a coach to ask a lot of questions and say, is it true the way you're viewing that? Or is there a different way we can look at that? Or what have you tried? Okay, what else could you try? So being able to really expand how we look at things is always super helpful. But, to me, I'm really an advocate. So sometimes when a client says to me, I'll ask them a question, they say, I don't know. And I'll challenge that and say, well, I think you do know. So let's think about it for a second, because oftentimes I'm really there to walk beside someone. I'm not offering advice or suggestions. I may not even know their industry. My job is to say, based on what you know, what else can you do? And how can you think about that in a different way, so that you can potentially move forward past a roadblock or an obstacle, or even just kind of open up that line of thinking, as you said, so that you can move forward.
Oh, that's that. Like whenever you say like, I think you do know, is when I like jokingly respond back, well, I don't like your tone, because
Right.
because you're getting at me. And a lot of us do. We create these kind of create kind of mental blocks for ourselves that keep us
Mhm.
from kind of getting outside of it, because it's scary to do new things and to try new
Yeah.
stuff. And so it's funny though how the questions that you ask, and I'm glad that you asserted that it's very inquisitive based. The questions that you ask, if I'm being honest with myself and thoughtful with myself, I often am like, cool. I don't want to admit that I now immediately have a new perspective for something that one question can open up a week's worth of kind of mental jumble. And all of a sudden, I have this brand new pathway that appeared. It's very like multiverse of madness, like everything everywhere all at once. Like all of a sudden, I got this new path that I can go through. And I love that about what you do. And I think that it's so valuable, especially to the recruiting industry in this day and age, because I'm on social media all the time for my job. I am on LinkedIn. I am in Facebook groups for human resources and talent acquisition and recruiting. I'm in the Twitter sphere for recruiting. I'm on Recruiter Talk on TikTok. I'm just consuming as much information as I can. And you know what? The number one thing I probably see are comments, posts, and memes about burnout, stress, the sense of being overwhelmed, and it's honestly on a pretty massive scale.
Mhm.
And I wanted to know, as a coach, what would you say to recruiters who are dealing with burnout on such a scale?
I mean, if you're dealing with burnout or anxiety or overwhelm as a coach, whether honestly recruiting or not, one of the biggest things to take a look at is, where are you spending your energy? So, what is giving you energy and what's sucking your energy? And can I say no to reallocate, adjust the things that are taking energy from me? And also to look at your workload. Oftentimes, we have overwhelm because we feel like there's futility in our workload. Like, I'm
Yeah,
doing all this work, but it's not really getting me results, yet I have to keep doing this work. So what
yeah,
can you look at and say, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to shift over here. Because if
Mm.
we're stuck in this idea of, well, that's how I have to do it, I'm like holding on to it very tightly, we can get stuck and it feels like we're on a gerbil wheel and we're not getting the results that we want. So looking at both your energy and your workload to see what's sucking it away, what's not getting me the results that I want, and shifting it can be very helpful.
Well, what's interesting to me too that you said is that oftentimes we get stuck in a cycle, and it's almost like you're in a current and out in the ocean, and
Mhm.
you can't swim out of it. And there is a trick. You're supposed to swim along the shore when you're in a current. And I think with coaching and our mentality according focus on our work is similar, to get out of that current of thinking. Because the thing is that the other thing that I see all the time is, well, I'm at this company and they're doing this. They have the same practice that they had from 10 years ago,
That's
but
right.
so much has changed within that time frame. And when it comes to the recruiting industry, especially over the past few years, everything has changed drastically. So if you're still doing something that you even did, 3 years ago, there's likely a new tool or a better option or some sort of strategy to approach that in a more valuable way that gives you as a recruiter your time back, something that we're all ultimately paying for time. And
Yes.
I think that's really, really special too.
Yep, and there's the opportunity, where can you look for automation, delegation, just scrapping something if it's not working? Because to your point,
Yeah.
in recruiting right now, it could be every 3 months that you're trying new things. So a trick that I like to do with clients too is, what are 10 things that you could try to move this idea forward?
Mm,
And sometimes people can only get to 6 or 7, but the fact that they even have 6 or 7 is great. And I'll even invite them, like, let's get really outlandish. So for example, and I'll use a side example that doesn't have to do with recruiting, but somebody who's saying, I need money for X. So great, let's go crazy. Do you want to sell your hair? Do you want to sell a kidney? Right? These are things that you probably are not going to do. But sometimes if you open up your mind to these more outlandish ideas, then the pendulum swings back and you can say, oh, well, but I do have this equipment potentially that I could sell that I don't use anymore, or this thing in the attic. And so it opens up your mind to think about things in a little different way. So how can I get creative around this and come up with some new ways to approach it? And they may or may not work, and that's okay. But anything that you do or try is going to give you data. So how do I want to
yeah.
do it differently next time? Or that didn't work quite as I was hoping it would, but there were some things that I learned from that I might like to try in a different way. So everything
Mhm.
isn't quite so black and white.
Yeah. I'm currently rewatching Breaking Bad, and that is an outlandish idea that I would
That's
not
right.
suggest. It's a fascinating show, but I don't want that to be our lives, even though our lives sometimes do feel that chaotic, even
That's
just the
right.
day to day. But the other thing that I think is kind of sticking out to me is, the idea of moving on from something that you're currently doing that isn't
Mhm.
working. A
That's right.
lot of people see that as failure. And
That's right.
how do you break out of the failure mindset of like, this is a failure? Because the way that, quite frankly, I'm going to ask you the question, but I'm also going to tell you one of the things that you helped me understand too
Yeah.
is that you talked about how it's kind of a spectrum. So there's,
Yeah.
success and failure are not, singular entities.
Yep.
There are always things, even if you do the best thing that you've ever done in your life, there are always ways to improve upon it. I think sports is a really fascinating example of that, where
Right.
even if you break a world record, there's somebody else who's going to train to break that one too.
Mhm.
And then even when you fail at something, it's still information that you're learning and you're taking in and you're developing and you're building towards a new space. So, what's
Mhm.
is can you elaborate on that a little bit more too?
Yeah, absolutely. Failure is one of those words where we almost automatically hear it and give it a negative connotation, which isn't necessarily true. So if we look at failure as simply a learning opportunity, a temporary setback, and a data point, for example, then failure doesn't become, I failed, and it's this like very negative, it
Definitive, like,
defines me kind of
yeah,
moment. It
yeah.
simply becomes like, okay, well, that did not go how I was expecting it to go. Maybe it didn't go how I wanted it to go. And I might have some emotions around that and go like, ooh, that kind of stinks. It didn't go how I wanted it to go. But what did I learn from this? How do I want to do it differently? How can I try that again and improve on it, to your point? So it's really a moment in time and something that's temporary and informative, rather than a singular moment that stops us in our tracks because now we are a failure. It's just that thing that didn't work
Ah,
quite how we wanted it to.
that's a really great point. The internalization of failure
Correct.
as like, okay, this project that I was trying to make happen didn't happen. It doesn't mean I'm a failure. It just means that that's not right for us in this moment.
Correct.
Um,
In this moment.
Yeah. And even at work, one of the things that I say to everybody all the time is that we always do the best that we can with the resources and circumstances that are provided.
And the
And
knowledge that we have.
yeah. And
Right.
so just bring that all full circle to emphasize the point. Like, I get recruiters are going through it. It's been so, so tough across every different industry. There's some sort of new complication or block that arrives. And I wish everybody had an Alyssa, because it's so helpful to have you on board here for our own team. And we really do try and invest those resources back into our own teams wherever we can. And when we're not, we would like to share them with our audience. So if you are watching, thank you for watching. Make sure to follow us on all of our socials, and
Mhm.
kind of focus in that area, because we're always giving out tips and tricks and guidance and strategy ideas, to make sure recruiters have the best resources for their needs, in the same way that we do that for our own team internally at CareerArc. But
Absolutely.
um, so to sign off, Alyssa, last kind of thing, could you give a parting piece of advice for, um, as a coach,
Mhm.
what would you tell the recruiters who are struggling with this crazy industry right now?
Yeah, there's so many things. So my final thought would be really to check your areas. Like, do you feel like there's things that you're doing where you feel like they're not a good use of your time? And how can you push back on that and find better ways? Because you all know all the things to do. You've been hearing them forever, where to
Mhm.
find people. But if it's not working, what are some, get outlandish, what are some ways you can reach people in a new way, or talk about something on your own social channel that you might think, I don't know if people would want to hear about it, but try it out. So be brave, be courageous. And if you don't hit it with the first thing, try something new.
Yeah, and I mean, this concept, this whole help wanted concept here, is from a pretty outlandish idea, because
Right.
it kind of clicked one day where I was like, I have never I've always loved the companies that I've worked for, but I've never felt the way that I do at CareerArc, where I something clicked and I said, "I really love everybody in this company.
Mhm.
Oh, they're so impressive to me. They're so smart. They're so talented. Everybody from Jim down to our CEO, down to our newest hire, and everyone in between." And I just felt more people should know that. And what we're discovering through understanding the world of recruiting and employer branding is that, it's really powerful to look internally. So if you're out there, look internally. Think of the people who are, really doing amazing things, and celebrate them, appreciate them, show how much you care. And I think that there is just so much opportunity that's sitting right in front of us sometimes, and it's been exciting to share it with the world. So, Alyssa, thank you for sharing all of your information with us today.
Yes, thank you for
Um,
having me.
if you haven't had the chance yet, our LinkedIn is below, along with all of our CareerArc information is below too. So you can go to CareerArc's website and find more about what we do. And if there's things that you'd like to see in the future, please let us know. Um, Next week, we are going to be doing the same thing in the same time in the same place, but we're going to be talking with Adam Lowe. He is CareerArc's senior product manager, to share his story on the value of surrounding yourself with high performers, and why good product management means really, really great success, for your team. So it's smart, thoughtful, and funny, and he's just a deeply kind individual. So I hope that you'll join us next week for more. We'll see you then. Bye, guys.